Everybody, today is Tuesday, February 18th. The time is 3 p.m. I'd like to call to order the Rules Administration and Procedures Committee. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Chairperson Ron Woolman.
Here.
Vice Chair Carl Franco.
Here.
Alderman Edward J. Bug.
Here.
Alderman Dan Barrero.
Here.
Alderwoman Patty Smith.
Here.
5 present.
First item on the agenda, approval of the minutes. 25-0070, approval of the minutes from Rules Administration and Procedures Committee, a meeting held on January 21st, 2025. I had a motion by Alderman Smith, second by Alderman Bug. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Item passes 5-0. Clerk, is anybody here for public comment?
No one has signed up.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, 25-0141, an ordinance amending section 2-185 of the Code of Ordinances with respect to the obligations of members of the city boards and commissions.
Good afternoon, RAP Committee. Alex Voigt with the Mayor's Office. The item before you is to do with an amendment that this committee took through after quite a bit of deliberation. This was regarding the economic interest statements that the city files. So I did attach the previous memo and the information from the actual amendment itself if you needed a bit of a refresher. But part of that process included the city's boards and commissions. And what this committee and ultimately the city council approved was a quarterly disclosure of outside employment and political committees. Now, the intention of these amendments was specific to city employees who are required to disclose outside employment, and then, of course, any political campaigns that any city employee or, again, elected official would have. So the survey for employees and alder people is very brief. I think it's been working quite well for all of us. But for the boards and commissions, that group was included, and it's a select number of boards and commissions, which is listed in the memo. But the inclusion of those boards and commissions has been very difficult to operationally in terms of their ability to access and take the surveys. We have not had a survey where people have been able to log in or complete it easily. So when we stepped back to take a look at the purpose of this, again, it boiled down to outside employment, which if you'll recall, all of our boards and commissioners are volunteers. So they will have outside employment because this is not their primary job. This is something they're doing in their spare time. And the second piece is the political campaigns, which again, that's not, in terms of the boards and commissions, that's not something that is relevant to their service as a board or commissioner. And additionally, it is something that they are still required to disclose as part of their county disclosure. So the information will still be collected. It will be made available to the public if the public wishes to look at it. And if any of our boards and commission members do have a political campaign and that is disclosed, again, the members of the public would be able to go online and look at it as they would with anyone else. So when we looked at the actual purpose and intention behind the quarterly changes, it was specific to our city employees, certain city employees, as well as our elected officials. So that's why we felt comfortable coming back before this committee and asking to remove just the boards and commissions from that specific requirement. And with that, I can take any questions.
Any questions or comments from the committee?
Quick question. So it doesn't have anything to do with my thoughts for the end of this. I agree with what you're saying. But does the Planning and Zoning Commission, do they get a stipend per meeting?
They do.
Okay.
They do.
Are they the only one that does?
No, so the Planning and Zoning, Preservation, Foxwalk, and Civil Service all receive a stipend per meeting.
Okay, and what is that stipend?
It was just bumped to $90.
Okay, same
It
thing.
was $75, and we
Okay.
bumped it to $90 in 2025.
Same as us.
Mhm.
Same as ours. All right, thank you.
Alderman Franco, do you have
Well, I think there was kind of answer. So, I didn't realize when we first did this that it was going to include
Yeah,
boards
I
and
can
commissions.
make
Did we talk about that at all? Because that would have been a red flag, I think, and I just don't remember at all.
I've got to be honest, I don't remember talking
Right.
about it, but I think because they are required to disclose They were required to complete the city's disclosure and the county disclosure. I think they were just folded in. So I don't think it was an express intention, because the
Right.
focus again was on employees and elected
Sure,
officials.
okay. That's kind of what I was wondering.
So
that's all.
moved.
Alderman Bug?
Thank you. I definitely see the understanding in this and along the lines of thinking. And also, you said it's duplicative
Yes.
because it's at the county. Now, our residents of Will County, Kendall County, and DuPage County are not used to going to the Kane County site to get their information. They expect to get it from the city. So if we could be assured somewhere in the city site that to obtain this information, you would need to go to the Kane County site, that'd be fine. I, as a Will County resident, if I wanted to get this information, I think I should be able to go to the city, because it's a city matter, and get the information. Not that I would go to the Kane County site. I would never think, as a Will County resident, I have to go to the Kane County site to get information, because I don't live in Kane County. So, I mean, just following that thinking, we should have something on our site telling them exactly where to go.
I don't see that that would be a problem, Alderman, because we can just put a disclosure on our disclosure site. If you are looking for information on any of the following boards and commissions, visit here, and then put a link to the county site. That'd be fine.
Yeah, I think that would solve the problem.
Yeah, okay.
I do have one question just to follow up with this. How was it handled before? We had to file city disclosures. I mean, Will County residents and Kendall County residents, they had to go to Kane County as well too then, right? So this will be something,
So how it works, and I do have Clerk Stallings here, so if I misspeak, but how it works is for the city disclosure, those come from the clerk's office. So
Yeah, no,
those are sent.
I'm saying prior to the city ones,
The
prior to that
county-
becoming a
So the
requirement.
county annually will contact the city clerk's office to make sure that they have all of the email addresses for anyone that's required, any of our required filers, and then they send the notice out that way. The city clerk will also send an email saying, keep an eye out for your county disclosure. So they work cooperatively
Yeah.
together.
And then prior to the city requirement, any resident had to go to the Kane County website like 10 years ago or 5, whenever, before this, or how long has that city requirement been in place?
Well, so
That's
we've
something-
always had the city and the county, and the
Oh,
city
okay.
requirement dates back to, I think, the early 80s.
Oh, okay.
But we've had two, and the purpose of changing that city staff brought forward, that the city
Yeah.
council approved a couple of years ago, was because it was so, it's duplicative,
Yeah.
and it's a lot of work for the city clerk's office.
Okay, that makes
to
sense,
manage.
sorry,
So
yeah.
that's why we were proposing to change it, and then ultimately settled on the quarterly, which again, for staff and elected officials, has been fine. It's just the boards and commissions that have been.
And then, so to Alderman Bug's point, do we have to change anything, or is that just something that you say you can handle and we can pass as is, or do we have to do something?
No,
Yeah.
we can pass it as is, because all that we'll be doing is essentially noting on the website, if someone were on the economic disclosure portal, if someone were looking for a board or commission member, we'll list the boards or commissions that are required filers, and then how to contact the county to get that information. So it'll be all together in one place.
Great, yeah, that makes sense to me, so. Any other questions or comments? And a motion by Alderman Smith,
Second.
second by Alderman Franco, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, 25-0137, a resolution appointing Brad Banks to the Sister Cities Commission.
Yes, so if the REP committee will recall, a few months ago, we brought forward 6 initial appointments to this 9-member commission, and we committed to bringing individuals forward as we were able to. One of the target areas for our staff working on the Sister Cities Commission was someone in the sports field. So Mr. Banks works with the Aurora Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. He is their, I can't remember his exact title, but he works in the sports field. And Lizette And Martha spoke with him. He indicated he was interested and submitted his application. And he is also a Ward 10 resident.
Any questions or comments from the committee?
So moved.
Got a motion by Alderman Smith. Second by Alderman Franco. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item carries 5-0. Next item on the agenda, 25-0157, a resolution approving the appointment of Gretchen Tim to the Aurora Area Convention and Visitors Bureau Board.
So we do have, and this is outlined in the memo, the city has the ability to bring forward at-large appointees to the Convention and Visitors Bureau. We do like to have representatives of our various hotels that we have in town. Gretchen works for the Holiday Inn that is on Broadway. She's been there, I believe, 11 years. And she was also very involved with the Rotary. She was very involved with the Festival of Lights prior to the city taking it over. So she's very well known in the community, very active, and has indicated a willingness to serve in this capacity. And she was recommended by Court Carlson.
Any questions or comments from the committee?
Oh, okay, well, we will fix that. Thank you.
I had a motion by Alderman Smith, second by Alderman Bug. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item carries 5-0. Next item on the agenda, 25-0144, Boards and Commissions Report.
Yes, Alex Voigt with the Mayor's Office. At the last RAP committee meeting, it's my understanding that there was an update on the overall state of the boards and commissions that was requested, and then Alderman Barrero also requested a report, which we will send out after this update. So we just decided to come back. We realized the last time we had done this report was in 2023, so we were a little overdue. So I'll just run through, and then I can take any questions. So as of 2025, the city has 35 active boards, commissions, and councils. We have 3 new ones. We have the Aging and Community Advisory Board, the AANHPI Advisory Board, and then the Sister Cities Commission. Those are our newest. Here is a 2023 ward snapshot. So we wanted to do this just by way of comparison for the council. So this is 2023. And then here is 2025. And I apologize that they're on different slides. We don't want to make it too small. But as of 2025, we have 28% of our board members are non-residents. And then you'll see the ward breakdown. Not a lot of changes in terms of historic representation. We typically have the most representation from wards 4 and 5. We have been growing out on the far east side. We have Ward 10 in 2023 had 7%, and now they have 9%. And Ward 9, we had 9%, now we have 8%, but still quite similar. Ward 8 has gone from 7% to 6%, so very minimal changes. But again, far east side representation has been consistently growing. Ward 1, we went up by 1%. And then the next slide here, we have a side-by-side comparison. So you can see over time how the representation has changed. I will say in terms of non-residents, we have seen an uptick in interest from non-residents in our boards and commissions. I think it has to do with the fact that we have boards and commissions that represent a lot of areas that other communities are not actively engaging in. And then the other piece of that is that we have really shifted to a regional focus in terms of the work that these groups are doing. We do recognize specifically the Aging and Community Advisory Board comes to mind. The majority of our new members are non-residents, but they work in agencies that support our residents. So we have a lot of that that's been happening, but ultimately, you know, we've been getting really high quality people on these boards, and we're really happy with that. And you'll see 2025, even I was surprised, 292 appointed members.
Good work.
I got a question there.
Yes, Alderman Bug.
Thank you. I thank you for the clarification. A little bit, of course, as we get over 25% outside of the city, that would be, you know, in my mind, at least the number, okay, maybe we need to stay near 25%. I think a better representation, and if we're able to see this, how many people or what percentage of the people not living in the city, so right now it's right near 28%, what percentage of them also don't work in the city? So,
Got it, okay. So we do require that if you do not live in the city, you have to either work in the city or be actively engaged in some sort of volunteer group, school activity, something along those lines. So every non-resident you see represented either works or is very involved in the city in some form or fashion.
yeah, I would just look at lives
Specifically
in
employment.
or works in. And there will still be some people who don't live or work in the city, but of course, then you want that number to be smaller versus, I mean, sure, there's people, I mean, if you work in the city, you know, besides sleeping, most of your time is spent in the city. 9 to 5, whatever.
Well, and
If we're able to break that down somehow, I think that'd be a good number to look at.
I can take a look at it, but I don't want to discount the agencies that are outside of Aurora that support Aurora residents. Again, specifically the Aging and Community Advisory Board. The city of Aurora, within our city limits, does not have a number of agencies that support our aging community. We have a number of age-restricted communities, but in terms of agencies that provide those support services, that's a gap that has been identified. And in order for us to have the knowledge and understanding about what those gaps are that have created this, we had to rely on those outside folks. And I would be willing to bet that the fact that I think 4 of our 6 appointees are non-residents, that represents that 27, the jump to 27.
No.
So,
I understand that number.
Yeah.
And that we will have some people in that number. It just shouldn't be a large number.
well, I think when out of 300 people, I understand what you're saying. I think that when you're looking at 300 people and the work that these groups are doing, and our goal is always to have Aurora residents. I do want to make that clear. But of the 3 most recent boards that we've created, we haven't even fully seated them yet. So that's the other thing to keep in mind, is that we don't want to not appoint highly qualified, interested, engaged people just because they don't live in the city. So it is a balance, and it is something we're always cognizant of. But this is where we are.
Okay.
And then,
Could I have a follow-up on
Yeah,
that too?
of course.
So we don't, obviously, we want Aurora residents, but if, let's say, 2 people applied, one lived in another town and one lived in Aurora, is there any advantage, I guess, to living in Aurora that you'll get the appointment?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and that doesn't
So-
happen too often.
Yeah, and then the only other alternative would be is not appoint somebody.
Correct.
If we didn't have, if we fully required a Aurora residency then. so,
Correct.
yeah.
Yep. And then this last slide, kind of building off of your point, is these are boards and commissions that have specific membership requirements. So none of the new boards are represented here, but just to keep in mind, these have very specific requirements, either in terms of organization represented, if it has a residency requirement, if there's a background check component, those sorts of things, that is represented here as well. And we do still have a handful of boards that do require Aurora residency, but when we overhauled the general boards and commissions back in 2021, we did ease up on that a bit. Not for all of them, but for some of them.
Chairman.
Yes.
So I just want to thank you for this update. This is great. I know you worked really hard at this, and you've really made a difference over the last, the years of where you've tallied these numbers up. Appreciate it a lot. I think we sit here and think the people are standing in line waiting to get to these boards, and I don't believe that that truly is the case with them. So I know that sometimes you're looking to get them filled, and you make the people fit yeah, I know that into where they want to be, if they've got a passion for that particular board. So I appreciate what you've done to bring this forward to us today. I think this is a great tool for us to look at, and it's good to see where our wards fall percentile-wise.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to thank Sylvia Vargas for putting this together. This is a lot of work, so I appreciate that, and I think she will as well. And we are always looking for highly qualified people, and from time to time, we will get into a situation where we have a lot of interest in a specific board. Typically, it's after a board hosts a successful event, then people want to sign up. But again, that ebbs and flows, and I think once the newer boards are up and running and people are able to see specifically what they're doing, there will be, again, the greater interest.
Did you
So-
see I put this in our?
I did.
Question?
Thank you.
Alderman Franco?
So with Alderman Donnell resigning, who's going
Yes.
to be filling his spot on the convention board?
So I don't know that it is required to have a city council member on there. I will have to double check on that one, but if that is the case, we will put out a call to the alder people to see who would be interested. And if it is not a requirement, I think we would probably look to see if he wanted to maintain his seat for a bit
Oh,
longer.
yeah,
I
you
don't
think
know
about
what,
that, yeah, right,
what his,
sure.
what his plans are, but
Gonna
we
need
don't like to
something
lose,
do.
we
Check
don't like
with
to lose
Marge on
good
that,
members.
Just to make sure.
His wife's gonna want him doing something.
Yeah.
And he was just reappointed to the tree board, so he's
Yeah,
not,
he has no excuse.
he's not going too far.
Yeah. Any questions or
We've got to
comments?
maintain our trees.
Right.
Yeah, I had a question.
Sure, Alderman Varela.
With respect to the board and commission members by ward.
Mhm.
So let's say, Ward one has, 5-6%. I don't know what that number is out of the,
Out of the
200,
300,
But
yeah.
how does that break down by each of the different boards and commissions? Which ones do I need to try to find people to serve on?
You will have that report in your email inbox as soon as I sit down.
Because that would be helpful too.
Yeah, absolutely. No, the report that we've provided, again, Sylvia put this together, has the board name, the individuals, their ward, whether they're a resident or not, and then their term dates. And then if we have vacancies, so you'll be able to take a look.
Can I have one more thought? I think the most important fact here for us to see is that the whole city's involved. We all have people
Yes.
in these commissions, and that's a good thing, because there's been times when we haven't, so this
Correct.
is a really good spread across the whole city.
It is. I will say in the time that I've been working with these groups, this is, I mean, we've been more consistent in terms of having representatives from all 10 wards. Previously, it was really all wards 4 and 5, every board. So it's improved greatly.
And one comment for Alderman Barrero, if I can get Curtis Wilson to move from my ward to your ward, our numbers would flip-flop.
I have one of the star volunteers just.
Yeah.
Very good. Any other questions or comments? And this is just information only, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Is
This is just a report for everyone, just for your information, so you can see what's happening with the groups.
Much appreciated, that's for sure. Something at COW or something at,
If you want it at COW, we certainly can.
I was just asking, I'll leave that up to you.
It's up to you. This
Yeah.
is-
I think this would be great information for everybody. If you're able to do it, I would say yes.
Sure.
So, and I think Alderman Buggs.
Oh, this was the last slide?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Alderman Franco, for bringing that up, because it's come up more than once. We love our super volunteers. Love them to death. I talked a little bit with some people, some people came to me, where we have known of people who have applied, and for whatever reason, they haven't fit on that board, and they're looking to get onto a board. So yeah, I'll be looking at the one that wasn't listed, the newer boards. But we discussed it before, there is no cap. And if we put on a cap, I would say those people who are on multiple boards would be grandfathered in, so not to impact anything. But certainly, I think going forward, to have someone on 4 boards or 5 boards, and someone's still looking to get onto a board, it kind of skews things a little bit. So that is definitely on my mind for the future.
I do think, I will say, and again, I think I've been working with these boards and commissions about 13 years at this point. Anytime we've had a cap or very restrictive requirements, it makes it extremely challenging to fill the boards. Now, I also want to emphasize that we have 2 really super volunteers who are on a number of boards, and those individuals are actively engaged in all of those boards. Therefore, there was no reason, and we did not have a line out the door for either of them, so there was no reason for us to not appoint them. That being said, if there are individuals who are interested in serving and there's not a seat available, if I'm aware of them, or if Sylvia or Yvonne is aware of them, we'll try to either match them with a board, or we'll just stay in touch with them when someone's term is up. But I do want to point out, we are mindful of individuals' attendance at meetings. So if people are not attending meetings, that's cause for removal, and it is something we use regularly. So we are, the fact that we've grown the number of people that are working to support the boards and commissions has created a better opportunity to get people in who want to serve. But again, right now, we're not in a position where we have waiting lists for every group, and we'll be, narrowing down who will sit on these groups. And we've also had the conversations with individuals who sit on several boards, and they have, they understand that at some point we may ask them to step down from something if someone else wants to step in. So those are conversations that are had. But really, it does boil down to, do we need people? Are they engaged and active participants? And in both cases, it's yes for the 2 people that we do have on multiple boards. So, and again, 2 out of 292.
Yeah, pretty good. Not to worry about.
And I would say one more thing too. Let's never jeopardize quality for volume.
Yeah.
Because you get a great volunteer, you don't want to get them out of there and bring somebody else in that doesn't have at least the quality this person brings to the table. So
Correct.
Sometimes, if you got to bite the bullet for a really, really good one, then you do. Because
Yeah.
it's just better for the city, it's better for the group. So I just want to make sure we don't trade that off at all. That's very important, if you got a good one.
Yeah.
It's a good problem to have if.
It's a great
having
problem to
people
have.
want to
Yeah.
on the board, that's for sure. Any other questions or comments?
No, thank you for the information.
Okay.
Thank you
All right.
again, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, 25-0135, recommended changes to the Alderman's office mileage reimbursement policy.
Rich Jacobs, Chief of Staff for the Office of Alderman. We have, if you haven't refreshed, please refresh your iPads. We have a PowerPoint and some additional attachments that were uploaded earlier.
Is the PowerPoint yours?
This is the Alderman's Office mileage policy. These are the key points. There are 2 mileage reimbursements proposals, Proposal 1 and Proposal 2. The second key point is reimbursement processing using lesser distance per IRS guidelines, submitting reimbursements monthly, which the Finance Department is, it's their preference, and it's also easier on the aldermanic staff, or submitting the reimbursements quarterly. And then the other key point is year-end remaining funds. So if you look at the proposal that has the red line, that's what we're considering policy 1. And I can go over it line by line, but the mileage reimbursement will stay at $500 per year per alderman. Mileage expense forms must be submitted either monthly or quarterly. Again, we're hoping for serious consideration to do it monthly. Reimbursements will only be paid for travel outside of the city of Aurora. And then at the end of the year, any remaining funds in the mileage budget will be returned to the city's general fund. If you go to the second proposal, Policy 2, again, mileage reimbursement stays at $500 per year per alderperson. Reimbursements are to be submitted monthly and no later than 2 weeks after the end of the month. All mileage reimbursement will be carefully reviewed and lesser distance will be used per IRS guidelines. And then at the end of the year, if there are remaining funds in the mileage budget, we will permit alderwomen and aldermen who have exceeded their allotted $500 budgeted amount to submit requests for additional requests for reimbursement. Reimbursement will be dependent on how much money is available in the mileage account, how many alderwomen and aldermen have gone over their allotted amount. These additional reimbursements must be submitted before the end of the year, cut off to process the previous year's bills. So happy to answer any questions.
Questions, comments?
I have a lot of questions, but I'm going to start with this one, and then I'll listen for a little bit. How many aldermen go over their 500 in a year?
I'm going to look at Crystal, it's one.
Okay, so I don't know why we're talking about this increase when it's only one person.
Historically, it's been one.
Okay. I am really open to listening to other people for this because I don't put in my mileage, so I believe I was told today I've done it once in 6 years, but I have a couple really hard no's. One of my really hard no's is if I have money at the end of my year in my ward funds, I don't have to give it to, it's allotted for my ward funds, I don't have to turn it over to another alderman because they spent more money than me. So I feel like this is almost saying the same thing. Pots are set up a little bit differently, the line item looks a little bit differently. I think that we have to have a cap. Because I think that there has to be some accountability. Some of us choose to do this and some of us choose not. It is a choice. So I have a really hard no for the adding, allowing money to go from one alderman into another alderman's allowances. So beyond that, I'm willing to listen.
I have a question.
Alderman Barrero.
So how does this tie into a, let's say, conference seminar that an alderman attended one of those, and usually it's part of that, and sometimes that travel could be a lot because of the distance. Is this the same thing, or is that something separate?
No, it's exactly that. So
it's
you would be the budgeted 500 per alderman per year. If you end up going to some conferences, driving to those conferences, you would be able to submit reimbursement, but that's coming out of the same.
And how about the lobby day going down to Springfield?
It
is that
includes
part of
lobby
this
day.
too?
Absolutely.
Those are the reasons, part of the reasons why
For
we
the-
have this. It's not to, run down the road a quarter mile to check on something and come back.
Mhm.
But those are the reasons why we have
Yeah, I would, I have questions,
Okay.
but I'll let everybody else. Alderman Bug?
Maybe I didn't follow. So you said you have proposed policy 1 and proposed policy 2.
So proposed policy 1 has feedback from our law department included in it, as well as speaking with finance. Proposal number 2 is more of the original that was sent over to and that's why it's in red line, sent over to legal for review.
Okay, so when I'm reading our attachments, proposed policy 2 is what is red line underlined.
No,
And
that's
then-
proposal 1 is red line.
Well, let me finish. Number 2 has the things that they didn't want from finance crossed out in our attachment. Because the last lines, at the end of the year, if there are remaining funds in the mileage budget, we will permit alderwomen, aldermen who have exceeded their allotment to submit requests for reimbursement. That's crossed through in the attachment.
In proposal 1.
Okay, I guess at the top it doesn't say, it's not titled Proposal 1, Proposal 2. It's just titled Proposed Draft Mileage Policy, Office of the Alderman. And then the second one is Mileage Policy, Office of the Alderman. Okay, so yeah, because the okay, I got you. Okay. Now I'm on. Okay. My first question. Wow. Okay. So the first one was with talking to finance or talking to.
The red line is feedback from the legal department.
And not finance.
Well, the big thing from finance was they would like
Time.
the reimbursements to be done monthly and not quarterly. That's what they
Okay, that's
highly
fine.
recommend.
Okay, that's fine. All right. So we, people sit up here, us 12, we're elected officials. And really in policy in the city, for the most part, all elected officials should be treated the same, all 13 of us. So I would definitely have a issue with mileage will only be paid for travel outside the city of Aurora limits. The purpose of the elected officials traveling to events is so that we are at those events. And we don't drive to the office to work at the office. That's not in our purview of what we are elected to do. We don't drive here and sit at a desk and do administrative things.
But you could, because we have a building
Well, that-
and an office for everyone.
That's
So
a
that
part
is
of
something.
it. That's a part of it. But the major part of it, being an elected official, is representing the city at various events and meetings and various things. Some of those you get mileage for, some you don't. Come to a meeting here, you don't get mileage, of course. We know that. So if you said legal proposed this, if the legal department was ready to say all 13 elected officials will only be paid for travel outside the city rural limits, in other words, that's why I had attached back the mayor's, what the current mayor has. The current mayor has a vehicle allowance of $536 a month. Ours is $500 a year, which is $2 a day. Or excuse me, I'm sorry, 2 miles a day. So if we are part-time, which is quote-unquote 50% time, so if legal wanted to propose that we be given a $270 a month vehicle allowance, which is half of the mayor's, I mean, just putting this in here is really, honestly, insulting. Mileage will only be paid for travel outside the city of Aurora limits for elected aldermen. I'm not sure what they were thinking.
A lot of city staff do not submit for mileage reimbursement
Okay.
when going to some of the same events that you attend, the ribbon cutting. Sometimes that's a part of the person's job to be there. It's strongly encouraged that all the directors go and
that direction is from the mayor's office. We don't control the departments. We
And
control, these are rules and procedures for the 12 elected people. And that's
correct, and
what
that's all
we can
that
control.
correct, and that's all that.
And the
when-
mayor dictates what the departments will do. If the departments want to talk to the mayor's office about that they need to be reimbursed for going to ribbon cuttings or not attending ribbon cuttings, that's not for me to discuss, because I have nothing to do with that. I don't work for the mayor's office, and I'm not a staff employee of the city. You were going to comment, Mr. Minnick? I don't want to cut you off.
Yes, Chris Minnick, Chief Financial Officer. And first off, Alderman, our intent was not to offend anyone with the description. As Mr. Jacobs mentioned a minute ago, there are many city staff who do not submit for mileage until the mileage or the travel, the business-related travel involves some kind of out of town, be that to Chicago, perhaps to Oak Brook, maybe another suburban area. At that particular point in time, the staff may submit back for mileage. But typically around town, many of the staff do not. Secondly, I would remind the committee that part of the package and part of the statutory obligations of the city are to provide a vehicle for the mayor. That is actually called out in a section of the city code.
It is.
It does not specify or talk about mileage reimbursements, but it does state, and again, as mentioned, it's been a part of the city code for some time, that a vehicle will be provided to the mayor. So, and I will also note that those benefits are taxable to the extent that they do not involve city mileage. So those are all kind of factors that we need to take into account when we talk this over.
Okay, right. And I agree with you, and that vehicle allowance was legislated by the aldermen.
Yes, correct.
20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, however
Yes.
long ago it was.
Correct.
The aldermen decided the mayor should have a vehicle for that reason to get around to events. And that, I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm just saying also the aldermen should be, I use it as a comparison. I don't think the aldermen need a vehicle allowance. I think the aldermen should be given a fair mileage allowance.
Okay.
But the comparison is a good comparison. We are elected officials, just like the mayor is. We have some of those same responsibilities and duties to attend events, and really that is. I don't want to put percentages on our job, but much more of a majority of our job, that is not the majority of a staff person's job in the city. the staff person in each department, whatever, they know what their duties are. At times, we understand the mayor dictates or whoever dictates that they need to go to certain events, and that's well and fine. It's good to have our staff, our chiefs, our department heads at different things. That's a good thing. And like I said, I'm not going to discuss their mileage.
Okay.
It's not in my purview to discuss the mileage of a department head. But certainly, and I think part of like Carl said a couple weeks ago, some of this will be settled or rectified when we start putting into place this going from either a house and or city hall, because that wasn't in our that was in our memo before or what have you. So
Excuse me.
so I think much of this will be remedied.
That's IRS rule. That's an IRS rule.
Right.
Correct,
right.
yeah.
So, yeah, that's really the main thing. I would have an issue with mileage will only be paid for travel outside the city of Aurora limits. That is, other than that, yeah, I mean, there's things, trying to turn it in a week after December 31st, of course. For us, that is our quote unquote given vacation time. It's one of our only given vacation times. So much of us are not around that week. We're around 50 other weeks of the year. So I know I myself, I try and take a vacation the first week of January. So, me getting in January 6th might be a little tight. So I would hope we'd have 2 weeks to get that in, but I understand we're trying to close everything out. And so that's debatable. That's a small thing, but.
And if I may, Alderman, that is a small thing, and I think that the finance department could live with 2 weeks. I don't think that would create an undue hardship. So if that's an amendment that we can make that would make it easier, we can certainly do that. We can certainly accommodate that.
Right. Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, I don't know if anybody else has a preference on the monthly versus quarterly. I would prefer the quarterly, but I know you want to try and get these things in and done. We're pretty, of course, busy. We have busy lives like everyone. So I would prefer it being quarterly, but I know it's better for your office and for Crystal than what we do now as the annual. We do it. It has to be in annually. There's no quarterly, and that's a hardship on you.
Well, it makes it, Rich Jacobs again, it's challenging if we're going to redistribute remaining funds to figure out
Yeah.
what that means. And when it closes out, we don't have access to the previous year's budget. That's why there's a cutoff and things have to be turned in at a certain time. Otherwise, your money is being taken out of the new year's budget. So you're starting with even less money going forward, and we're trying to avoid that.
I would say this. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, Chris Minnick again. I think that, monthly is preferred because I think it keeps it fresh in everybody's
would agree.
memory.
Yep.
In terms of, procedures or things that you have to do every month as compared to a quarter. Sometimes the quarter can sneak up on you before you realize it's been 3 months. But I think even more important than the cadence is that we have a uniform standard for all the aldermen. It will create a bit of of a processing issue if we have some of the aldermen doing it on a monthly basis and some of them doing on a quarterly basis, because then we have to go back and figure out, okay, has Alderman X already submitted for this particular month's mileage, or is this indeed, a fresh reimbursement request? So, I would request that if monthly would be the preference, but if quarterly is more preferred for the alder people, that we have a consistent basis, be it monthly or quarterly.
Thank you. I would say monthly is, every job I've ever had, it's always been monthly, and I think you're not asking for a lot for us to do this monthly. And I would say for the end of the year, so what would be, number one, how many events do we have from the 25th till the end of the year or something like that? Wouldn't it be a problem to go ahead and submit it just to eliminate the issues, everybody scrambling that first and second week of January? So I think we can make the sacrifice and get that in just to make it uniform again on top of that too. So I would say, as far as, I think $500, we all need a budget, and I think $500 would cover that. We all have to adhere to budgets. Number two, as far as only traveling or getting reimbursement for outside of the city, I guess we can debate that, but what about, I guess my question would be is, why would somebody in the 8th Ward have to go somewhere in the 7th Ward to ribbon cutting and this and that? If you're a ward-specific person, why wouldn't it just stick to that ward itself as far as reimbursements and things? So more than welcome to go to something from the 8th or 9th Ward or 10th Ward to the 5th Ward, but is that reimbursable? I would be like, why would we have to be there outside of just showing our support, just like a director or somebody else from within the city itself going out there just to be a team player and go? So thoughts on reimbursement for with only events within the specific ward? Anybody's feedback on that? On any other questions? So.
Well, I got some things. All right, so a couple of things are musts and a couple of things are discretionary. The point of closest to the event you're going to is an IRS, it's no give, right? If I go from my house to the east side of Aurora, I start here. I go from my house to something in the west side of the city, I start from my house because it's closer. That's a given, right?
It's the shortest distance.
But by law. Because I'm trying to make sure that we're not trying to discretionary things that aren't discretionary. So that's a given. We have to do that going forward. All right, that's one. Outside the city is discretionary. This point about travel, so that's on us, right? So we have
That's
to.
a policy matter,
So
yes.
so that's a policy thing. So my thing on that is, I don't think that would be right that we only go to things outside the city and get paid for it. If I have, and I know what you're talking about ribbon cuttings. I go to all the ribbon cuttings in the 5th Ward, but what if there's something big like the casino, and I drive over there? I think we should be reimbursed that because the show, we want to show that. So I think that going outside the city I don't think it's a starter. Because we do a lot of stuff, we really want to do a lot of stuff here, because we know when we go to some of these events, they love it when the alderman comes. That should be there. When Alderman Smith brought up, and this is next, I'm jumping around now, when Alderman Smith said up, it's not fair that if I don't spend my money, that it goes to somebody else. I would question that only because it's not a negative effect on you. So if you don't spend your money, it's not like, oh wait, it's my money, I get to keep it. It's if it was a negative effect, I could see that. But if we have money left over, because I didn't go somewhere and Alderman Warman did, but Alderman Bug did, he went over, and there's money left, I don't see the problem with awarding that money, because it's basically, if he went the extra mile to go all these things, and they're legit, and they'd have to be legit, otherwise couldn't put them down, why couldn't we help him out because he went to those things? So I don't think that that's a problem either. I think that would be a good idea, because we don't want an alderman to go the extra mile for that reason. So I would say I would leave it in there. So the way I'm looking at it right now, two is pretty good. I can go either way with the monthly or quarterly, but my suggestion would always be what's better for you guys, because if we can't get something in 2 weeks after a month, it's, we should be able to do that. And then the end of the year thing, between Christmas and the first of the year, there's nothing going on anyway. You could do your thing before the month's even over and submit it, because, where are you gonna go? There's nothing gonna happen between the 25th, even the week of the 25th to the first of the year. So I think I think 2 is pretty good. I don't see a whole lot of problem with that. So that's just kind of my overall thoughts.
All right, my turn.
Alderman Smith.
So I agree with 2 being the better, especially this carpooling thing. I don't want to carpool with any of you guys. Just kidding. I do like the best. I'm fine with quarterly or monthly. Like I said, I haven't been using this process at all. But to your point, with the overage, first of all, if we've got 12 aldermen and we only occasionally have one in a year that goes over, we don't have a problem. We don't have a problem. So I don't know why we're trying to make a change for the $500. Doesn't mean I didn't go to these events. It just meant that I chose not to go through the reimbursement process. So, meaning that I'm not using the taxpayers' money for me to go to these events. So therefore, I feel a little begrudged that someone else would use the money that I chose not to when that money was slotted to be for my ward. It's not a big argument for me, but that's how I feel about it. So we all probably travel the same amount. It's just some of us keep better track, some of us keep no track at all. I think at some point in time, anything over 500 in a year, there's almost a little bit of question, where you went and how, every time I pull out of my driveway, I could be keeping track of it. And yes, we'd all go over 500 a year, but I think that there's got to be some common sense to this thing. Just because I was there didn't mean I wrote it in on my mileage. Or just because I didn't get my mileage didn't mean I wasn't there. So I'm a little, like I said, begrudged on that particular item. Again, but we don't have a problem. So why are we creating a solution for a problem we don't even have? If we've got 3, 4, 5, 6 aldermen going over in a year, then we've got a problem, but we don't. So why are we making changes on an issue that we don't have a problem with?
Well, I don't know that we're making changes. I think we're just tightening up the rules. I think there's been a lot of people that want to see some changes made, but when you look at this, except for the new one is the IRS guidelines, which is really gonna put us all back. I went to a couple events the other day by the Paramount, and 0. I had 0 miles because I'm starting here. So mines are going to go way down. I think everybody's going to way down too. But I just think that if there's no...
Well, but if you drove around the block and then you parked your car...
Yeah, well, that would be silly. But again, I go back to if there's no negative effect on a person, like if you don't do your stuff, it doesn't mean you can't do it. It's just that you didn't do it, or you didn't go and let's say you only did $300 worth in a year, and somebody did 600. I don't see the problem with allowing that person because it's no harm to you.
Because I think if you're getting up to $600 and you got somebody else at $300, it's not because the $300 person didn't go the $600. They just chose not to track it. So I think that there's got to be a limit, and I think we need to choose a limit and stick to that limit to know that this is what you get in a year. This is your traveling dollars in a year. And if you go past that, then you have to eat it, because I'm eating everything I do.
Right.
By choice.
Right.
I realize that, but by choice. But I don't like the fact that I'm choosing not to utilize the tax dollars for this, but yet somebody else who didn't do any more than I did, but is choosing to cut into that. It's
And
my
I-
own personal,
right.
my own
And
personal
I would
thought
say
here.
this. So I used to go down to Springfield every year. That was a big mileage thing. There was 3 of us that went down every year. Me and
Did you carpool?
Yeah, we did. Danelle and Masiakos. So that was a big chunk, but a lot of other people didn't go. So you never know when there's going to be that big event there. And at the end of the day, if I spend $700, I'm rolling the dice. I'm going to get that 200 because if it's not there, it's not there. So I'm taking a chance. It's not like, oh, I'm going to get my $700. Maybe I won't. Maybe if everybody starts turning them in, I won't, and it won't be there. So that's on me to take the chance. So I just don't see, if it's no harm to somebody, I don't feel it's a problem going forward. That's all.
I don't think somebody, it's tax dollars. They're tax dollars.
Well, if it's tax dollars, then we shouldn't be doing what we're doing here if it's illegal. But apparently it is legal and it's appropriate, so that's what we're doing. So
Aren't
I
these
don't see-
tax dollars that we're getting for these reimbursements?
Yes, they are.
There
They're
you go.
public funds.
It's public funds, it's tax dollars. If I, as an alderman, am choosing not to use those tax dollars, why does another alderman get to use the dollars that I choose not to use?
Because they're allowed to go to events, city type of events for this type of thing. I mean, it just is. The only reason we're camping it at $500 is because we don't feel that the $6,000 budget is ever gonna be harmed by being at 500 as opposed to jumping up to
Okay.
1,000. So I think that was
We're
part
gonna have
of the
to
reason.
agree to disagree on
No,
this.
that's fine.
Let me jump in, and I think the way Mr. Jacobs wrote it, and the way your predecessor enacted it, or put it in action, the way it worked, is, yes, it is a quote-unquote $500 allotment, but actually it's a $6,000 pool to the alderman's office, which then is divided up by 12.
We all understand that,
So
Ed.
the pool, it's the alderman's pooled money. And then, I guess, if someone chooses not to, like Carl said, if you go to IML, you go to Springfield Day, and then you do a few things around December to January to December, whatever events, plus those two big ones, and you're at 550 instead of 500. You know, and then the question, like Carl said, is that $50 still left in the pooled money of 6,000? So I guess I look at it as more of a pooled amount. That's the way it's always been used, as a pooled amount. At least it was under your predecessor, and I believe the way it's been used since you came into office, or your appointment as our chief of staff. So at least that's the way I look at it since I've been here, because that's what the chief of staff, Ms. Struber, told me, and the way it's worked. So that it's a pooled amount. And like you said, you go 700, you're rolling the dice with the 200. You might not get it back. You know you're driving those miles, but you might not get it. It's only if it's left over out of the pool.
And what this does in addition, it just guarantees that you are never gonna get stuck at $400, and if you did 500, you're not gonna lose 100. You're guaranteed your 500, so no matter what. Doesn't matter what everybody else does. Somebody spends 6,000 of it, no, you're getting your 500s. That's on them. So that's the nice thing too. It's a guarantee of 500, but not limited to a 500 if funds are available. Which I don't see a problem with that, because why not? Everything you went to better be legitimate anyway. You're not going to get reimbursed for any of it. So, as long as we're not screwing somebody out of money that's going somewhere, then I don't see the problem with that concept.
I think
Carl,
we're-
let me ask you a
We're splitting
question.
hairs here, guys. Let's move on. We're
Let me ask
splitting
you a
hairs.
question on what you said. So you said you went, well, you drove from your house to the.
Springfield.
No, I'm sorry. The
downtown
casino, the casino thing you were saying, right? You went to the casino ribbon cutting?
Well,
or
I
the-
always reference that as an event that's a bigger event than just something in my ward. Now, I went recently to the Paramount, and I had to go from here, and it was
Oh,
point
the
ze-
Paramount.
it was
Oh,
point
I thought-
02.
okay, I'm wrong.
It was all .02, and I'm like, all right. I'm not
Okay,
even
I
putting it
thought
down.
you said the casino.
Well, I use the casino as a reference for a big event that I would go outside
Okay,
my
no,
ward.
I thought you were saying, okay, I understand now.
So-
From City Hall to the Paramount is walking distance, so it's zero. I understand, okay.
Is this a voting
So
thing
I
or
would say
discussion?
this, yeah, this is, are we voting or?
This is a voting thing or a discussion only?
Well, I was given direction at the Finance Committee to put into words that could shape a policy specifically for those that go over the budgeted $500 and what that would look like. And so we were just clarifying because of, staff did not check your forms when you submitted them. We just submitted them for reimbursement. We're checking it now to make sure, per the IRS guidelines, that it's the shorter distance. I believe that alone, they're really, unless there's a lot of travel outside of the state, I don't see really too many of you going over the $500 since we're.
That's why I don't
Yeah, so
understand
I-
why we're having this argument. If we're going to go forward with this, and we're going to go to monthly, I would like to recommend, because everybody else is taking their $500, I might as well be keeping track of my mileage as well, that the first time of this year that could be quarterly, because I have not, I have it all in my phone where I've gone, but I've not sent any of my mileage in. So I would request the first one of this year to be a quarterly one from January until maybe the second week in, so from January, February to the second week in March?
Would
March
be the
31st.
months of January, February, and March, and then it would be through the second week of April,
Okay.
if that's how we.
Could we do that for the first one, and then go monthly?
And then
from
going
there?
forward monthly after that, I would,
Oh, yeah, we can't say it's monthly starting in January because we haven't enacted it yet, so.
Correct.
Yeah.
so I would say this, I think we're splitting hairs, and I
Yes.
think, well, let's see what happens here. I agree that it's going quarterly the first time and monthly after that, just because I think it'll keep everybody, for lack of a better word, honest and turning the stuff in, give you guys proper time to review if need be. I think we should see, I think having a cap of 500 with the, if money is available, yes, I would say go ahead and allocate that at the end of the year if need be. But it's something I think we need to watch and maybe consider changing if it's excessive, I guess. So what are the guidelines? Let's say, can I just make something up and say, I need to go talk to somebody in St. Charles and I can write that mileage off? Like, what is a guideline for something like that, you know? Yeah.
Not to recommend any one app over another, there
Yeah.
are apps that will track
No, I'm
this
saying I
for
can
you.
just say I went to Sugar Grove to talk to.
I take your word that your
Okay.
that meeting is in relation to your being an alderperson for the city of Aurora.
So
And
the honor system, in other words, is what,
Of course.
yeah.
Of
so-
course. If there are receipts, that is also part of the parking receipts, that kind of stuff is helpful.
So that's my suggestion. I don't know, like you said, are we voting on this, or is this just something that
Now,
we're?
this is to vote.
Something vote?
So I think what we've got is number 2.
Number 2, with, I don't know if we need to add in that it's done quarterly the first time and the monthly thereafter? If it has to be an amendment, is that?
Unless we just do a start date. If you just do a start date,
Yeah,
then you would be okay.
Yeah. Okay, so then we can say that we start this,
But I just want to be able to go back and get my first.
correct, yeah, so,
yeah, the start date would be, what's the end of the quarter, March 31st?
March 31st, yeah.
would be the start date?
So April 1st
April 1st.
would be the start date of monthly.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense, so, anything else? I know, Alderman Buggy, there are some other items that you submitted, within the last hour, some of these items. Is there anything that we need to discuss about this, about retroing back to 24? And I'm assuming that you're okay with the $500 with, if funds are left over, that could be allocated then? Is there anything on that second
Yeah.
document?
Actually, I don't know. I said the retro back to last year just because there was some question last year on people submitting, especially the new people. And they I won't say they didn't know what they were doing, but they'd never done it before. So maybe they didn't know what they were doing. They'd never come to the end of the year and done their mileage at the end of the year. People were seeing what was happening. Okay. So, no, it was just a question. We didn't know what was in the pool. So, so
in-
yeah, I guess it would not hurt to go back retro to December 1st, I guess. And if there was anything,
I disagree
December
with that.
1st.
I would say-
I think we're creating a nightmare to go
Yeah,
back.
I'd say going forward,
No,
I think
we
as
go
is, my
forward
opinion, but
and
again, we
not
can vote
backwards.
on everything. I think
No.
going as is, just as it
No.
is, with the start date of April 1st, quarterly and then monthly thereafter,
that's fine.
yeah. So
And
again, do
let's
we,
not forget, if, at the end of the year, if this didn't work out well for whatever reason, we could always change it.
Always
So
change
this
it.
is
Yeah, we can
not-
always
it's a-
change anything.
It's a very fluid document that we can
Yeah.
change if we feel there's a flaw that we haven't seen, so we got that in.
It could very well be updated on the dollar, the 70 cents. It could
Yeah.
Yeah.
possibly go up again. And
Yeah.
so this would need to be updated.
And I will add back in, you guys are talking about, a little bit about, there aren't many things going on between December 25 and December 31st. There's a number of city events between December 25. We're not always here for them, but some people are. So I would definitely, because Mr. Minnick said it would not be a hardship, to put that last one also at 2 weeks, to get
It
in.
makes it consistent as well. It's 2 weeks across the board.
Yeah.
It's-
Okay.
Yeah, I,
Okay. If you are okay with it, I'm okay with it. I think it
Yes.
monthly, I know, makes it easier from your guys' side, and if you're okay with 2 weeks,
Click on the
like I said, I think that's fine.
no changes.
There's a number of Hispanic events between.
Okay.
And there's Kwanzaa.
So, again, do we,
I think number 2 is where we're gonna go.
yes,
With just the adding of the.
start date?
Start date, April 1st.
yes.
So again, do we have to motion that, or we can just say make that change and we're good with it, or?
I'm sorry.
Oh,
please say that again.
do we have to make an amendment, to motion for an amendment to change the start date, or can we just say, Attorney Veenstra, there he is.
Does it say the start dates in there?
Mr. Chairman, I think if that's the consensus and everybody understands the consensus, then the motion would be to adopt with the.
With the
following
change, okay.
So,
Although,
even though I disagree with the 500, I'm gonna be a team
Look at you,
player.
team player, yes.
Which one is number 2?
The
One
non-red
that's
line
not
one.
red line.
The one that is not.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, I appreciate that.
It would be the one that's.
Yeah,
Number 2 with the change to beginning April 1st, 2025.
okay. Do I have a motion?
So,
Had a motion by Alderman Smith, second by Alderman Franco. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Item carries 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, There we go. Next item on the agenda, resolutions here, 25-0136, a resolution authorizing the 2025 Ward 9 Scholarship Program.
thank you. So this is the same as last year, straight from the template that the RAP committee put into effect for scholarship programs. It's exactly the same, according to the template. So just want to get this started, get it out to the schools, so we can move forward this year.
Alderman Bug, you do a good job on your program here. I make a motion to, for this.
Second.
Thank you.
Any questions, comments?
I just have one question, and
Sure.
I think I know the answer. So the only people that are gonna see the names of the people will be the aldermanic staff. And then they're gonna redact it and then goes forward. Is that how that works? 'Cause somebody's gonna have to see the name coming in. I think I read in there that they're gonna redact it, so obviously they'll
I
see
think
it.
Rich will have the
Crystal
answer here
saying
for us.
yes. Crystal's saying yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yeah, no, the alderman can see the names of the people who applied, like if there's 30 people applied, all of their information for review. So it's redacted for review.
Okay.
I mean, I might have a list of, okay, these 30 people applied, but once those applications are going for review, the person who's being reviewed is RQ 976.
Okay.
And then this is RQ
So you'll
976,
see,
this is
all
our.
right, so you see Joe Smith come in, but when you review, you won't know it's Joe Smith's information.
Applicant number
Okay.
2. or
I'm just trying to, and that makes sense. I'm just trying to, I just want to make sure. Okay.
Rich Jacobs again, but we will, in case there is some issues, it's Alderman Bug's aide who knows intimately all the information, and we keep, and actually I keep in my locked office, the scholarships, the original, that's unredacted.
Any other questions or
And
comments?
that's a good point if anybody wants to consider in the future. And, communication between us. So we had scholarships come in. And then a parent called back and said, did you get our information? Okay. And their last name began with a V. So I knew just somehow in that R whatever, the makeup thing, a V would be in there somewhere. And we looked through and there was no V in any of the things. And that was because, and maybe it was even before you got here, they switched the coding, and I didn't know it. And we told the parent, we didn't get your scholarship application. And then we went back and said, oh, we changed around the coding system. We actually did get it. So that's a communication here, but everything is coded, yes. And yeah, they have a very good system. I don't even touch the stuff.
No.
I don't. Until I take the redacted things and give them to the committee to review. So that's it. Thank you, and thank you to this commission. I think it's what Dan's new, who did the template last year. That was a lot of work. It got everyone on the same page, and I think going forward, it's going to be a good thing.
I would agree, so and
So
I think
we had a motion,
copying
right?
what you had was, well, very helpful, that's for sure.
I second it.
Okay,
So we
second.
had a motion by Alderman Smith, second by Alderman Barrero. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item carries 5-0. There are no other
Motion
items
to
on the
adjourn?
agenda. I have a motion by Alderman Franco, second by Alderman Bug. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned at 4:16. Thank you.